Morning, everybody, and welcome to Manufacturing Matters. We're in Boston at the Autonomous Mobile Robotics and Logistics Show, co-located with the Vision Show this year. And I'm lucky enough to be with Bryan Sellars, Industry Marketing Manager for SICK. Thanks for coming, Bryan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So kick us off with a little bit. Tell us a little about SICK.
Yeah, absolutely. So SICK is a German-based company. We've been in the United States now since the mid-'70s. We are a manufacturer for automation components. The name comes from Dr. Erwin SICK, who started the company back in the late 40s. So it's a German thing. The kids love the name. So, SICK's an awesome name that way. But we got our start with inventing the world's first safety light curtain, and that was in the 50s. And so since then, we've obviously stayed true to our roots with safety, but then we've evolved more into more vision stuff like cameras, 2D, 3D. We do a lot with robot guidance. We do a lot with safety lidar and other types of lidar, multi-layer lidar, single-player lidar, time-of-flight technology as well. It's all about optics. So,
Right.
it used to be SICK Optic, actually. And so our really bread and butter is anything with light or, laser, sensors, anything like that. And so yeah, we've been very fortunate. It's been a great run. We're strong. We're still a privately held company, which is awesome. And yeah, I've been here 10 years and it's been great. So yeah.
Well, that brings up a whole lot of different jumping off points when you talk about the LiDAR and all the other applications you guys on the
Right.
robotics side, autonomous side. But before we get into the delving deeper there and get more granular, so what is the sickest thing that you've seen on the show floor?
The sickest thing is at the SICK booth, obviously, with our brand new safety rated 3D time of flight product we call the Safe Visionary 2. It's made for robot safety. It's made for human safety, and so it's the first one of our portfolio that is call it a multiplanar, lidar. We're not just doing the 2D. Now we're actually measuring X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
And so now we can really protect that robot, protect people from getting hit. Mobile robots, stationary robots. Some of the other things I've seen, a lot of 3D technology out there as far as cameras go. They've got cameras moving that's stitching together great looking images, color images.
Yep.
A lot of that kind of stuff. That's maybe a little bit more on the metrology side, but it's really fascinating to see this technology and really how far it's come just in the last few years.
So with the new safety systems, you've got the optical image-based safety systems, right? So you're doing a point cloud or at least a projected grid.
Correct, yep.
So what is the value proposition? I would assume that's a little bit more expensive as a safety system, or seriously, where's the value for the customer?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, it's actually not as expensive as the lidar, safety lidar. So it's kind of the way it's kind of the way the industry is going. It's
Yep.
Everything in technology gets smaller, better, cheaper,
Yep.
and so and we're no exception. But yeah, it's a great price point. The real value to the customer is now you're detecting humans in a 3D space and not just in a 2D plane. So in other words, if you're the robot, right?
Yep.
If you're the robot and I do like this, if your safety laser scanner is at the bottom, my leg may be right here, but my arm could be right here. And so
Right.
now we're actually seeing that, right? Yeah, we don't want to, exactly, yeah.
It's a bad day at work.
Bob the Nub is not a good look, but yeah, so we have that. And so now we're seeing, the world is not flat, neither
Yep.
are you. And so with a 3D image now, we can actually see beyond just what a 2D plane may give you. And that's what the real value is to the customer.
And the TOF, from a machine vision perspective and a guidance thing, it operates usually a little bit slower than your straight up LiDAR, single planar LiDAR systems, which probably 30 FPS or whatever you're operating is probably way good enough for any kind of robotic safety system.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, the speed, and it all comes back to a risk assessment, right? So
Right.
your risk assessment will tell you, based on the speed of your robot, based on the speed of your safety equipment, how far do I need to be away from you before I actually, can get to you, the danger zone, if you will.
Right.
So, based on that risk assessment, yeah, you're not going to outrun the product. Now, again, you didn't make sure it's applied correctly. You can have the safest product in the world, but if it's not applied correctly, then it doesn't matter. And I will say that's one of the differentiators with SICK is we have that knowledge, not only in making the products themselves, but doing risk assessments, doing proof of concepts, doing validations once the whole thing's been built. We've got an entire safety services group that handles all that and takes that liability away from the customer. We've got broad shoulders.
Yep.
And so we're making sure that not only are we giving you products that are going to be safe, but we're going to apply them in a way that's going to be safe.
So you guys are really doing a lot of consultative sales. It's not just working through distribution channels and everything like that.
Correct.
SICK
Yeah.
is committing a lot of resources into helping customers understand their application.
Correct. Yeah. We have a wonderful distribution network. We also, again, have a direct network, and part of that, part of those services kind of come through that. But like I said, it's really, we're wanting to take that liability away from others because we want to make sure that our products are used correctly, implemented correctly, so that at the end of the day, we ultimately would have the liability if something were to happen,
right.
Because we've given it our stamp of approval. But yeah, that's and it was just all this knowledge we have. We've just decided to put it to use for people to make sure that, again, it's something that's going to be safe to use.
Were you guys at the Robotic Safety Conference this year?
We were, yeah. I was there a couple of weeks ago in Columbus, right, or last week or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. The AI show was in Columbus. Was that? Or they co-located this year with Robot Safety?
Correct.
Or no,
International Robot Safety Conference, IRSC. Yep.
Is that becoming a bigger deal for the industry?
Oh, yeah.
As robotic safety becomes more and more mainstream?
As robots become more mainstream, robotic safety is obviously going to follow that. I mean, it's everyone is in a labor crunch. Everyone is having trouble finding qualified, skilled labor.
Yes.
And so as automation continues to grow, A3 is obviously on top of all that with all the robot standards, with shows like Automate, with shows like IRSC. Which is one of the big values that I see out of A3 and our company sees out of A3 association. But it's as these become more prevalent and as these work in concert with humans, we're not replacing humans entirely. There may still be a human element there. We're making sure that robot has eyes, that it can see its environment, it can see the people around it, it can see the products it's trying to interact with or whatever the process that it's trying to do. And so we really give the robot eyes, and again, as robots become more popular in the industry, safety is obviously never going away. And we're always going to have to make sure that we maintain the highest level of safety. We don't want people getting hurt.
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked about 2D, 3D vision. We talked about lidar a little bit. What's SICK's position regarding, when I think of lidar, I think one of the hottest applications right now is for autonomous systems. And of course, we're here at the AMR show.
Absolutely.
Right, so I'm assuming SICK is widely used both in the safety systems, but are you also helping to provide assemblies or components to the AMR companies for their sensing mechanisms? Are we transitioning, trying to get out into embedded systems in consumer products, AKA self-driving cars? What is your SICK's position?
Yeah, so SICK's obviously the strongest point is in, call it the automation, factory automation, logistics automation.
Sure.
Where we come from. And that's where we're always going to maintain our strength. What we've seen actually are other lidar manufacturers that maybe tried to go after the consumer market first. Now they're trying to get into this market because it's exploding. Again, it's e-commerce, whatever, it's driving all that kind of stuff, labor gaps, all that. I mean, automation is not going anywhere. Automation's here to stay. And so we are mainly concentrating on that kind of stuff. Now, we're also getting into outdoor automation, but we call it off-road. So it would be anything like, construction vehicles or farming, agriculture, service bots, like the ones that, roll through the Pittsburgh International Airport, sanitizing everything, right? Or the folks that are delivering your prescriptions at a hospital, things like that. So we are getting into that industry as well. It's as robot manufacturers go into those industries, they're pulling us through for human protection, for localization, lidar navigation, that kind of thing. We're really trying to stay away from the car industry. We're not really wanting to put our stuff on cars for a couple of reasons. Number one, with SICK being a privately held company, we just don't want the liability of any kind of accidents. But also, quite frankly, anytime you deal with automotive, it's a race to the bottom as far as pricing goes.
Exactly.
And quite frankly, we're not interested in that. So we'll let other people handle that market. And again, there's plenty to do here in the factory automation and logistics automation markets where we really don't have to play with that.
That's fantastic.
But with vision, we're seeing a lot with quality control. We're seeing a lot with track and trace. We're seeing a lot with RFID. RFID seems to be taking off now.
Where are we in the adoption curve? You mentioned service robotics earlier.
Yes.
It's something we've been talking about for a decade more. Are we finally seeing traction here?
It's happening, yeah. I mean, you've got people like Starship Technologies that are doing delivery bots for college campuses, for office campuses, things like that. You can see, FedEx box rolling down the street, that last mile delivery type of thing.
Right.
You're seeing, again, the disinfecting robots for hospitals, for airports, public areas. There's folks like Nightscope that's making robots for parking lot security. So I mean, it's all over. Yeah,
Wow.
the adoption is coming, and it will continue to go.
And so much of it needs perception.
It is, yeah. It's all of these things need perception. They need to know where they're going. They
Yep.
need to know not to hit you as they're rolling down the road.
Yep.
They need to know that cars aren't coming as they're crossing the street. And now you're starting to get into smart infrastructure and things like that. And so and there's a lot of schools like Texas A&M has an entire group that's just dedicated to smart cities and smart infrastructure. University of Michigan has a great smart city research campus, if you will. And so they're learning these things. How can autonomy? How can the infrastructure help the adoption of autonomy for these kind of folks that
Yep.
you can be used on the street and not just in a warehouse?
Bryan, I can't thank you enough for taking a few minutes.
Absolutely,
You know,
my
as we
pleasure.
talked about, unfortunately, the labor gap that you mentioned earlier is really across all industries. I
Yes.
mean, even in ours.
Yes, sure.
So, and in manufacturing, I mean, the most recent numbers came out. I believe 22% of the jobs that were filled in the last report from the government in the U.S. were all manufacturing based. We're still throttled there. So,
Great.
you know, taking time to get with these podcasts, spread the word about manufacturing, the benefits of automation technology, and that it's just a little bit sexier than most people think.
It is.
It's worth
Come to
taking a
these
couple
shows
minutes.
and you'll see. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, we're not working in dark environments trying to, you know, have big, you know, big smelters of metal just flowing everywhere, and it's just dirty. It's sexy, it's cool, it's innovative, it's
Yeah.
technology, and it's not going anywhere.
No, and pretty bad to bone culture too.
Oh, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really
So
is.
Bryan from SICK, thank you so much for giving us your
You're very
time.
welcome.
Guys, if you've got any questions for Mr. Sellars, I hope you'll give us a shout over at Tech B2B. Click like, share this podcast so that we can continue to spread the word about why manufacturing matters. And until we see you next time, ciao.